Hi, today I'm going to talk about how to create a sales pitch to make more money. I am going to share with you a 5-part formula to create a sales pitch that works to close big deals, any big sales. If you're a small business owner, you can quadruple your business using this formula. You can use it to sell anything, any products or services that you sell. We're going to align the sales pitch the way our customers engage and respond positively to information. We are going to invite the customer into a story. Now, Donald Miller, who is from Business Made Simple, he teaches the story brand framework as a way to clarify your message, right? And you can leverage that story brand framework to develop any marketing collateral, websites, emails, anything that is related with marketing. But the question is, how do we invite a customer to a story when you have the customer in the room with you and you need to do it on the fly? And that's where we're going to talk about this today. You can basically use the story brand framework and apply it to any sales conversations and even any sales collateral as well. It works like this. You will have step one, you start talking about the problem the customer is facing. Basically, you start doing fact finding, understanding what are the problem that the customer is experiencing. The only reason anyone buys something is because they are getting a solution to a problem that they have, period. So the number one objective for a sales rep, or if you are the salesperson, is to identify the problem that the customer has, or help the customer realize that they have a specific problem in the first place, and he or she may not be aware of, right? So during the conversation and the fact finding is where you have that exploration of where is the main problem for the customer. So the goal is to go into any sales conversations, listening for clues, and asking the right questions to find out what is the problem that they have, period. So this is how it works. You will identify the problem, and you are looking for those emotional consequences of the problem, and you want to agitate that during the problem during the conversation. What happens is part of the majority of the conversation needs to be around the problem and understanding what is it that they need, right? And the feelings that the person has because he has the problem. This is very important. You also need to empathize with the customer problem as well. And this is important for them so then they feel understood. And then you need to connect the problem to the solution directly. You gotta make that connection in order for the customer to understand where you're going with the conversation. In step two, you will need to position your product as a solution to that problem. People only spend money if the product is the solution to their problem. The two steps are these two steps: finding the problem and connecting the problem to the solution takes about 80% of the sales journey, basically, that conversation. One of the mistakes that sales representatives or salespeople do is that they present the product as a solution to a problem that the customer doesn't have. And that is because they are not actively listening to their needs. So you have a script, you know what are the benefits of your product, but you just can't mix them up. You really need to listen and understand where's the connection. The sales rep, in some point during the conversation, finally they will get, okay, I got nailed down the problem, and in his head already made the connection, the problem with the solution, right? But because the sales rep did that in his head, that doesn't mean that the customer has a clear understanding yet of that connection. So one thing to consider is that don't underestimate how the sales cycle can be shorter if you really identify the problem and position the solution to that problem right away. So if you can identify right away, your sales cycle will be much shorter. But you need to listen to the problem in the first place in order to get to that place. Once you have that clarity as a sales rep, here's where you need to communicate with very simple language and easy to understand that connection with the product to the solution. To close the remaining 20% of the sales cycle, so we were talking about 80%, we were talking about the problem and solution during the sales conversation with the customer, right? And then we have a 20% to close the remaining conversation. So you need to add a 3-step plan. This builds a bridge from the customer problem to your solution. People don't make impulse buys for a product that is expensive or a product that is a black box investment. Meaning, if there's too much mystery involved, the customer feels uncomfortable and then won't move forward. You gotta give them information in order for them to make a decision. And they had to be very clear to them, right? So here's where the customer tells you, if they're not clear, then they might say, I'm going to get back to you because, they don't feel, they're not feeling safe yet that this is the right thing, right, to do for them. And what they're saying is that when they say, I'm going to get back to you, what they're saying is like, I don't really have, all the information that I need in order to make a decision or to understand if your product or service really solves my problem. And that's why they don't make a decision and they push you away. So this is the moment where you bring the 3-step plan. It is important to break it down into 3 phases. This is a psychological tool that lets the customer know that you're taking them to a short, easy journey that takes them from their problem to your solution. You are providing a risk-free commitment towards their investment within the 3-step plan. Psychologically, we know that customers will chase the investment, even if it's a time investment. So money or time, they will chase for that, right? They're not going to invest right away. Also, once they say yes to, let's say, step 1 because it's risk-free and steps 2 because it's, risk-free and it's not as, they're not really making a big commitment, they're more likely to say yes again, right? So the 3-step process helps with the yes to the first step, the yes to the second step, and the third one is when they make it's the commitment phase. So the reason, the reason the bridge is so important is because human beings build relationship in 3 phases. The first phase of the relationship is curiosity. You have made me curious about having a solution to my problem. You gave me something, I'm curious, and I want to understand if this is something that can help me, right? The second phase of the relationship is alignment. Here's where this helps them understand if my curiosity that I have about what you're sharing is correct or incorrect. This is the longest phase within the conversation because during this relationship, this is where you provide a lot of information to the customer. And the customer in his head is asking, how are you going to solve the problem? How much is going to cost me for you to solve my problem? And is it really going to work? Right? So basically the report, the information, whatever you share with them is part of the alignment phase where you're just giving me as much as information so they can understand where they are standing. At this point in this phase, there's no risk, right? You're sharing information, you're giving everything that you have to inform them about how you can help them, solve that problem. And the third phase is the commitment phase. Here's where you put the offer on the table and where you share what you have. Then, as part of the conversation, once you finish the 3-step process, you're going to paint the negative stakes to the conversation. Basically, you're going to remind them of the not good or bad things that are going to happen if they don't buy the product or the service from you. This encourages people to cross the bridge between the problem and the solution. And that helps to push people away from their problem if you have that negative stake. Now, then you need to switch and then you bring the positive stakes to the conversation. And this magnetizes people in the bridge towards your solution. People tend to move to a vision with a better life. They tend to move towards something better, a solution to their problem, basically, right? So you need to get this very, very clear in your conversation when you're talking about the different stakes. And then the final thing is the call to action. The customer, you need to take the customer to take action. And this means you're inviting the customer to make the purchase that they already want to make, if that's the right solution for them. So they're already thinking while you're providing all this information if this is solving the problem, and they're making the decision in their head, yes or no. So in the call to action step, the customer already knows this is a solution. And you as a salesperson, you're affirming to them that they're making the right decision to purchase it. So you kind of need to give them that nudge and that push for them to make the purchase and to take action. So and to give you a quick example, like let's say you're at a restaurant and they give you options of, steak and fish, and you just ask, well, what do you think is better, A and B? And then you decide, oh, I think I want to order, let's say, fish. And the waiter says, that's a great choice. And then that makes you feel good because you make the choice, and the waiter is kind of like asserting that the decision that you made makes sense, and it's a great choice. So that's a good way to bring that up during the conversation. Now, this is the journey that the customer is going through, and the more you can help them go through it and making them feel comfortable taking these steps, the fastest the sales process will be, and the more success you're going to have during the sales process. So I hope this has been helpful. I'm going to summarize now the sales script a little bit, so then it's a little bit more organized and you have it more in a sequence. But basically, the sales script will it will help you invite the customer to a story. So for step one, you talk about the problem, using it as a hook in your conversation. Step two, you position your product as a solution to the problem during the conversation. People consider buying a product only when they realize the product is the solution to their problem. That's clear. Step three, give the customer a step-by-step plan. So you provide a safe way for the customer to be enlightened. This is the second phase of the relationship, the alignment, right? Curiosity is first, alignment is second. And then you give them the plan. And then when you give them the plan, you're making the bridge, you're giving them, you're building the bridge between their problem and the solutions that you're selling. Step four, then you paint the negative states. So it's what it's gonna cost you if you don't do this. When you paint the negative stakes, you create a sense of urgency for the customer, but you don't leave them hanging in there with the negative stakes, right? Your life doesn't have to look that way. Then you will go to step five, and then you start painting the positive stakes. And then you can start showing the customer how your life can look a lot better when you paint the positive stakes. You foreshadow a climatic scene in the customer story. And the final step is the call to action. And you give them permission that taking action is the right step for them, right? So this formula really captivates your mind. Every time you watch a movie, every time you watch a speaker that engages with you, they're using this formula. Storytellers use it to captivate people in many forms, right? So just so you know, the human brain spends about 30% of their time daydreaming, but it cannot daydream if they encounter a story because they're engaged. And that's why we're bringing the story as part of the sales conversation. So when you ask the customer to place an order, you give them, again, permission to do what they already want to do, and they feel comfortable doing so. I hope this was helpful, and you take action implementing this formula during your sales conversations. And I'll see you next time. Thanks.